Hello and welcome to yet another video from Nordic Anglers. Today it's all about one of the most crucial and key elements of fly tying. This is a video about dubbing, what the different dubbings are used for and exactly how to use them. So today we're talking dubbing. There is a lot of different dubbing out there. At Nordic Anglers we have more than 750 different SKUs, different dubbings, and of course these are divided into subcategories and brands and stuff. But we have a lot of dubbing, and the 750 is basically just a number to show you how much different dubbing there is, and there is people who use all of these different types of dubbing. If you want to categorize the dubbing, then you can basically categorize them into two different and distinct categories. On the one hand, you have all the synthetic dubbings, which is basically synthetic fibers, and then you have the natural dubbings. There is a lot of subcategories and a lot of course, a lot of different types of dubbings. But what what makes the synthetic dubbing different is that, as a general rule, the synthetic dubbing is kind of uniform. It has maybe not completely the same length of all the fibers, but it's quite uniform in that it has only one type of fiber. So synthetic dubbing is only one type of fiber, and of course when we have 700 plus dubbings, that means we have a lot of different types of synthetic dubbing, and these can be used for different things. For instance, the SLF dubbing here is a fairly thin but fairly long fiber dubbing, which works ideally and perfect for things like shrimp patterns and stuff, where you want to have a voluminous body where you can really pull out all the dubbings. Then something like this is the ideal. But there is also some more. For instance, the fly right here, which is another synthetic dubbing, it has even thinner fibers, and these are even softer. So this is the ideal dubbing for dry flies, for instance. So you want to make sure that you read up on the text that is written on the different dubbings to know exactly what you need and what you're looking for, and then buy the proper products. Because the fly ride, for instance, is superb for dry flies, but will not be very well suited for shrimps, for instance. Okay, that is the synthetic dubbings. The synthetic dubbings are light, it does not soak up water, and it's very uniform in the way that the fibers in the bag is. The colors and the texture is the same throughout the bag. Another thing about a lot of the synthetic dubbings is that there is a lot of flash materials as well. All your ice dubbings, all your flashabou dubbings are basically a flash material that has a lot of shine to it, and these can of course be used in their own right, but they can also be used to mix with a lot of other dubbings to create new effects. And that is the nice thing about dubbing. Is when you start to have a lot of different dubbings and you want a specific color, you can basically mix up these dubbings a lot and get exactly the shade or the tone or the small flash effect that you want. And that is one of the really nice things about dubbing as well. The other dubbing, the natural dubbings, they can be colored, but they can also be in natural colors, are defined or are normally characterized by having different types of hairs in there. So this is not a completely uniform, because this is basically someone that has shaven a squirrel or whatever. I mean, of course, the pelt of a squirrel, they haven't shaved the squirrel and then released it back into the wild. But what this basically means, and what the properties of the natural dubbing is, that since natural hairs on different sorts of animals are not completely uniform, then the dubbing here is not completely uniform either. On a typical squirrel or whatever we're talking about, we will have some coarser, longer covering hairs, and then some woolly parts of the hairs as well. This means that a bag of natural dubbing most often will contain a lot of different textures and a lot of different types of hairs, which gives the natural dubbing some unique properties that makes it ideally suited for smaller nymphs, for flies in general, that you want a more spiky body, where you want basically to have a lot of different texture and a lot of different possibilities. You can of course mix both the natural dubbing with the synthetics, but also with the flash dubbing to produce exactly the effect and exactly the type of dubbing that you need for your exact fly. But basically, the difference between the synthetic dubbing and the natural dubbing is the natural dubbing tends to be shorter in length because it can only be as long as the hairs. The synthetic dubbing can be as long as you want, because basically it's a matter of how long you cut the different strands into. This is fairly uniform in color and in texture, unless you buy something that is mixed, of course. And this, on the other hand, is fairly diverse in the different types of hairs that a bag in a certain color contains. That is the main difference between the synthetic and the natural dubbings. So enough with the theory. Now I'm going to show you on this very large hook some different ways of using dubbing, and I'm also going to use the different types of dubbing. I'm going to use one synthetic dubbing, and then I'm going to use one natural dubbing, so you can see the difference between these two and how they look on a hook and why there is a difference. Here I have a really big hook, and I just did exactly this video in Danish, so this is going to be the finished result. I'm going to show you the two different techniques for using dubbing, and I'm going to do that first with synthetic and then with natural dubbing, so you can see the difference. The first and easiest easiest way to basically apply dubbing is basically you just take some of the dubbing here, and I urge you to use the amount of dubbing you use with caution, because it's always easy to apply more, but it's difficult to subtract some of the dubbing. So use less than what you would think you should need for this in order to get the best result. Basically what I do, and I was a bit fast there, is now I have the dubbing here, so I try to make kind of to shape the dubbing into what I need, which is basically something that is not too wide but is fairly long. And then I'm gonna add that on top of the thread, and I'm gonna, with my fingers, I'm gonna manipulate the dubbing so it goes around the thread. And the way to do this is basically to always move the same way with your index finger and your thumb. The thumb have a supporting role, and then you take your index finger and then you mash and squeeze the dubbing to be furled around the tying thread. This will give you this this irregular shaped, not sausage, but I don't know what this what name to call this or to define this. But basically, if you do this the right way, you will have a nice aligned dubbing that is easy to apply, that is easy to move up and down on the thread here with your fingers if you don't put too much pressure on. And this is the easiest way to basically apply dubbing to any hook or shank for that matter. Now you have what you need, and you can basically just shape the body of your fly. This technique, the way to use this technique, gives a fairly solid, a fairly firm body, which is a bit difficult to pull a lot of the dubbing out here, because basically the dubbing here is intertwined and is very firmly placed on the thread. You can pull some of the dubbing out, but it's going to give you a center of dubbing that is fairly dense, and not as much dubbing to kind of create a halo or a corona effect. A nice trick to make this easier for you is basically to buy yourself a dubbing wax. And basically what this is it makes the thread more sticky. So it will make the dubbing stick easier to the thread, like so. So when you're doing exactly what I just did here, it will be easier, it will be smoother, and it will be a lot easier for you to actually shape this this dubbing sausage, or I cannot find the right name for that. If someone has the right name for that in English, please write it in the commentary. And then you can basically do whatever you want with the dubbing, like so. This is an easy way to basically fill the hook with dubbing and to get the amount and the tapering of the body that you want. But as I said, it's not as easy to pull out the dubbing in as evenly a fashion as this next trick I'm going to show you. It takes a bit more effort and is not as easy to get kind of the transparent body that you want for instance, shrimps or baitfish or something along those lines. So there you have it, the first way of making dubbing. The second way is to make a dubbing loop. And what you basically do is you double the thread, you pull out the thread so you have it double, and then you simply tie down the thread again, so you will have a loop. Now, if you look at it, this loop is uneven in the bottom, it's very open in the bottom, and in order to close it, I take the tying thread and I move it one complete rotation around the base of the dubbing loop, and now I have a perfect loop that is on the end here. There is a lot of different, and to do this technique properly, you need a tool. You need a dubbing twister. These comes in a variety of shapes and a variety of prices. This is the SM the Smane dubbing loop tool, and this is the dubbing loop tool that I like the best. It has a unique feature, which is that it opens up, and this makes it a lot easier for me to actually use. I'm going to take one of the open ends here, attach it to the thread, and then the other one I'm going to catch the thread with as well. This will make it very easy for me to have, of course then now it teases me a bit here. There we go, and there we go. This will make the dubbing loop here easy for me to open and close. Why did it not catch on? I've done this like a million times. There, and you need to put the dubbing loop inside here and then basically catch. Why is this teasing me now? There we go. This will double the, for some reason it didn't work, but you can do it this way as well. Now you have the option to open the dubbing loop and to apply the dubbing that you need. So I'm going to take a contrasting color of dubbing. I'm going to take a blue one for this next section. And basically I prepare it the same way as I did before. I kind of pull it into a not that narrow, but a narrower segment, and then long. Then I open my dubbing loop here. And then I take the dubbing and put it in between, place it in between the two different tying threads. There we go. Now I have it in place, and basically and that's also why it's important to have a well-balanced dubbing twister, because then I set it to spin, and it will instantly make all the dubbing here in this loop be spun about, and basically I can just now, I can tease out some of the dubbing that I want to basically give this corona effect, to give the fly more translucent appearance, like so. And I'm gonna move my tying thread a bit. There we go. And then basically I turn this and I fold it backwards while I turn. So you can see already now we are getting a lot more transparency from the dubbing, and this will make the dubbing really stand out a lot more than if we just, you know, use technique 1. Had a bit too much dubbing there, so I'm gonna cut this off. But with the same amount of dubbing as before, I get a slimmer profile of the fly, I get a more translucent body, and it's easier for me to get an even distributed effect from the fibers here. So you can definitely see the difference here on how the two different techniques vary in the way it will form the actual body of your fly. Now, this was the synthetic. If we take one of the natural dubbings, and we do exactly the same thing, we will see that because of the STF dubbing is a relatively long haired synthetic fiber, it will be longer, the dubbing. I do exactly the same here. I just make kind of this, dubbing sausage, in lack for a better term. And I can apply this to the next part of the hook here. Now I have attached that, I'm going to take my dubbing brush and pull out some of the hairs here. But what you will see is you get a lot of the coarser hairs to stand out, and this is kind of the key about the natural dubbing. It's not going to be as big as an effect, and that is also why a lot of the time the natural dubbing is used very much for nymphs and smaller things like crustaceans and stuff, and not as much for shrimp, because basically it gives a really ragged, it gives a really food-like expression to the fly, but it's not usable for, let's say, big shrimps like this one. It will simply not give the same effect as the STF does in a shrimp like this one. But it makes a lot of the smaller flies looks really nice and really basically like food, because it's not uniform. It's pointy, it's spiky, and a lot of things like that. If we do the same dubbing here, I'm gonna use a different color, but the same one. Oh, and of course the dubbing wax is really ideal for the natural dubbing, because it really latches very nicely onto the spiky fibers and stuff, and it makes just a huge difference when you're using especially natural dubbing. It makes your life a lot easier. Then I'm gonna take a gray color now, just to have something to contrast a bit. Oh no, I did this all without the old Habits Die Hard. I did all of this without the dubbing reel, but then we can spin that, and you can see that this looks very different from the way that the synthetic dubbing looked, because there is a lot of woolly hairs here, and not as much of the longer fibers. Then this will still look ragged and shaggy and nice, but it looks quite different from the synthetic dubbings. You can see by doing this, you do not have to brush as vigorously or as much. It's basically, when you do the dubbing look, you basically get exactly the same effect, just a bit sooner than when you applied the dubbing directly to the thread and meshed it on there with your fingers. Also, if you brush this, you'll get it a bit more, the dubbing here, the gray dubbing, will stand a bit more out. You can see it's basically taking over, even though there is less dubbing than the brown one, it's basically taking over, and it has the same effect, and it takes up as much space as the other, and you will not have to do as much work afterwards. So basically those are the techniques and the two different types of dubbing in effect, and you can see the difference here and what you can use what for. So here you have the finished result. You have the two different overall types of dubbing. You have the artificial dubbing and the natural dubbing. The artificial dubbing, as you can see, is quite uniform in how it's how it expresses itself on the body here. And here we just mesh the dubbing on with the fingers. This basically gives a more dense and a more bulky body, which is nice for some things. If you do the dubbing loop, then you can get a more translucent effect, which is nice for other things. But basically, the synthetic fibers here are, because of this, are fairly long because of the type of dubbing we've used, which is nice for shrimps and bait fish and stuff. While the natural dubbing is defined on the length of that, and the size of that is defined on the length, of course, of the natural hairs from that exact animal which the dubbing came from. Again here you can see this is where we just meshed the dubbing on. It was easy, it was fast, but we had to manipulate it quite a lot afterwards with the dubbing needle. This was not the case with the dubbing loop, where the dubbing basically just was almost perfect from just as soon as we were done with the dubbing loop. And those are the basic difference between the synthetic and the natural hair. The natural hair is defined very much by what type of animal it comes from, is that provided the dubbing, and the artificial dubbing is defined by being uniform, the same length throughout the package, and all the fibers are the same. We talked a lot about mixing dubbings and doing a lot of different stuff, and I'm going to illustrate and show you exactly how to do this. Here I have my box with all my STF dubbings, and I'm going to take some of the light tan of this. I'm going to place it here in the middle, in the center, and then I'm going to take some, in this case I'm going to use this for some gobies and shrimps, and I want to add a small amount of flash effect. So basically I'm going to take some pearl dubbing and put on top of there. And the way you mix this is not very high-tech or anything. You just pull it apart, place it on top of itself, pull it apart, and just try to mix this as much as possible. Then you can mangle it a bit, fold it up a bit. But the one thing that is crucial here is if you want to tie 5 flies, then make sure that you have 5 flies, because otherwise you will have to do this a lot of times. And it's better to basically make the amount of dubbing that you need. You can also mix 2 full bags and stuff. And let's say I think this looks quite nice, but I'm not completely sure that the color is what exactly I want. So basically I can take a small amount of another dubbing in orange, and then basically I just continue to mix this up, and this will give my dubbing here a completely new effect. And for instance, I have mixed in here some fluorescent orange, which again turned this dubbing here. I'm just gonna make sure I get every of the fiber here. This made this dubbing a bit more fluorescent, but it also gave it kind of this orange hue to it now. If for one reason or another I want some of the shorter natural spikiness of a natural dubbing, and I want this to be a bit darker, I could take some of this, basically just place it on top there and just start mixing again. And this way, when you have an assortment of different dubbings, you can create custom dubbings exactly to your own specifications. But what I said before, again, if you end up creating something that you think looks really, really nice, it's nice that you have made quite a lot of dubbing. And the way to keep track of this dubbing is another cool gadget. This is my SLF dubbing box, but this I have made myself. I have basically just bought this empty dubbing dispenser. It has holes in the bottom, so I can easily pick out the amount of dubbing that I need. And here I can sort and organize all my dubbing in exactly the way I want. So I think I have 12 or 15 or something of these that I have filled with the dubbing I use the most. And basically I have all of these dubbing dispensers. Here is my one for all my pinks, and here is one that is basically just a lot of dubbing I had left over. Here is all my sealskin dubbing and stuff. A lot of these different dubbings are also available in preloaded dispensers. So you can basically buy a preloaded dispenser with the most used colors of that different dubbing. And if you have all of these different colors here, it's very easy for you to, with these colors, to basically blend these to get an insane amount and a wide range of different other nuances of dubbing. So do not hesitate to mix dubbing. You can make exactly what you need. Even if you, let's say, you ran out of tan dubbing, you could basically just take some white and some brown and mix that up and make something that is approximately close to the tan. So I urge you to get some dubbings, to mix around, to fool around with it, and create your own custom dubbings in exactly the colors that you think is ideal and perfect for that exact fly that you want to tie. It's easy, it's fast, and it just looks really awesome. Of course, you can also just buy straight out of the package dubbing, like this Spawn Mega Seal dubbing that has been added some flash to this. But basically, the way they have done this color is basically the same way I just did there. I imagine they do this in a quite larger quantum than and not by hand probably. You can even buy a small coffee bean shredder and make that and use that to mix dubbing as well. But this is a nice way of customizing your dubbings, and it's a nice technique, and it works really, really well. Well, basically that was, a round trip way around dubbing. We've talked about the techniques for using and applying dubbing. We've talked about how to mix dubbing, what the difference between artificial and natural dubbing is. As I said, we have a lot of dubbing in the shop. I think we have more than 25 different brands or labels of dubbing. So I'm not able to make an in-depth video where I talk specifically about the different ones. What I can say and what I can urge you to do is talk to other fly fishermen, other fly tiers. What are they using for exactly their type of flies? And then go and get some of the dubbing that you need. And be sure to experiment, to mix a lot, and to try out new things, because dubbing is one of the key elements of most flies. It's as a whole a very nice, very nice materials, and you can, as I said, get a lot of different dubbings at Nordic Anglers. That is my web shop. My name is Daniel, and I thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked it, then please send us a comment, like the video, and if you feel the need, then share it with a friend. That would mean a lot. Thank you for watching, and good luck out on the water.